Good here, superhero training, cruising down to the airport here with the one and only David Avocado Wolfe, and yeah, we're just going to get the download off Avo before he jets off. So hey bro, interesting times we're living in, beginning of 2012. We can already feel things accelerating and the intensity of it all increasing. I know you're an avid researcher and you really got your finger on the pulse of current affairs, exopolitics, esoteric agendas, and things going on the ground level in the physical material world as well. How are you feeling about things right now, and what's your predictions for this year?
All right. Well, I feel good about everything. I mean, it's one of those years where anything can happen, and this is the biggest year. There's been more build up to 2012 than anything thus far, anything we've ever experienced in our lives. There's never been such a build up to a year, and it's shaping up to be quite a fireworks year. There's going to be a lot of interesting things happening. I think the whole build up in the Middle East is really interesting, and that can pop off at any time, and it is not a one-sided affair. It's not going to be like the U.S. helping Libya to overthrow Gaddafi. It's going to be, I think, more evenly matched if Iran gets into the game, and there could be a couple surprises coming down the pipeline according to what we've been looking at recently. So that's kind of cool, and we're having a lot more fun this year than ever before because all the things we put into motion years ago are now coming to fruition. So those fruit trees, they're now producing fruit, basically, is what's happening in every metaphor of what that means. And I feel really good about everything. It's kind of like everything's the best ever, really. And no matter what happens, we're just rolling with it. Because my feeling is that the original intent of the Earth, what the Earth really wants, is what we're going to see more of from this point forward. So I feel in alignment with that. We work with the Earth, we work with nature, we work with the elemental beings, we work with the higher energy frequencies of nature, and therefore, because we're in alignment with that, that's going to be something that's going to be amplified, and that means that all the things we're doing are going to be amplified. Now, if we're out of alignment with that, let's say we're in a city environment, we're not working with nature, we're working on Wall Street, or whatever our career is about, then we got to be aware that we could get into trouble because there's going to be an amplification of natural energies, and I think there's going to be a disintegration of unnatural energies and environments. So if you want to kind of line up everything to stack the odds in your favor, I, in 2012, recommend getting out of the cities, getting more onto the land, getting connected to sustainability and farming and growing your own food. These are trends that are already happening. I mean, we're all hearing about this more and more and more, and it's been a while that this has been going on, but now we got to take action. Now we move to action. It's not the thought or the word anymore. Now, this year, it's about action.
Wonderful. And what advice would you give to people that are, freaking out a little bit by the way things appear to be, on the surface of modern affairs, as what effectively is a purification of humanity, as we're seeing some of the worst manifestations of the human psyche and their controllers playing out. And to a lot of people, when they're just looking at the way things appear to be, sometimes it appears to be overwhelming or helpless. What advice would you give to those people that are plugged into just the surface manifestation?
It's darkest before dawn. Spring follows winter every time, and we're going to rebound from this in some way, shape, or form. This is an interesting one because this is a concrescence of a lot of different energies coming together. It's the economic system coming to a head. It's a huge galactic cyclical system coming to a head. It's the Mayan calendar and all of that. It's all the cycles of civilization have reached kind of this point of producing a huge amount of knowledge, a huge amount of information, a huge amount of awareness. So all this is happening right simultaneously, probably according to plan, right on time. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I just keep going forward with love in your heart and an attitude of gratitude, and keep pouring forth the natural energies that the planet wants, and get on the side of all good things. And if you're on the side of all good things, what can happen to you? Nothing bad can happen to you. If you're on the side of evil, which is basically having to work all the time in an unnatural environment for nothing, and then on this money system and the taxation system and the whole Illuminati agenda, then I'd be a little bit careful, because then you're on the wrong side of the fence, and things might go against you. So you've got to kind of line yourself up with where the odds are. So that's how I see it.
Wonderful. What about, I know you're a big fan of getting to the springs. How important do you feel that that connection with the spirit of life coming through the pure water is right now, and people really taking that on and finding out where the local springs are and heading up there?
I'd rank that in the top 1 or 2 things you could do with yourself, is find your local springs and drink the waters directly from the earth, and find out about the way that nature produces wild water for you, purified water for you. And there's so much energy and information coming through that water that it's actually ridiculous to even talk about tap water, filtered water, or ozonated water, any of it. It's the Kangen water system. It's almost preposterous, actually. It's one of my pet peeves, actually, when people start asking me about that stuff.
Let's talk about that information that's in the water. How does that phenomena occur? Where does that information come from, and what is it? And how can we assimilate that?
Well, it's electromagnetic. It's hydrogen. Hydrogen is able to capture the information of every single thing and carry it. So hydrogen is the origin, probably, of homeopathic effects. It's the rocks. It's the whole hydrological cycle of the earth, and what that is informing us about when we drink that water. There's also the direct connection to cold, because we're talking about drinking cold spring water, and that connection to cold water is something that I think we need to reconnect to. We're always running away from cold, towards warmth, towards what we perceive as comfort, and we need to get into cold more. So that's part of the energies of raw foods, is part of the energy of spring water, is turning into the cold. I also feel very strongly not only about drinking the water, but also jumping in the water. Getting into spring water is very important. And that's something that we should make a regular practice all seasons, including in the middle of the winter, to kind of toughen ourselves up to where our natural state really is, which is our ability to deal with hot and cold. And it builds up our nerve force, so we have resiliency. And I do that whenever I get to a spring, is dip in as well.
Wonderful.
It's tantamount in importance. If you've been on the fence about it, it's tantamount in importance. And once you click into that reality of spring water, all that other stuff is like, it's like silly, and you discover that, and you realize it.
So we're talking about immense changes that are going on in the world, but obviously, the Earth as a living organism is going through an incredible metamorphosis and transformation as well. And by tapping into the waters, by drinking the waters, the living waters, and bathing in there and going on these adventures in nature, we're actually plugging in more directly to the latest news, like the real hot off the press downloads coming through nature, if you like, with what's going on. And you've been into this for years and years and years, going to the springs and sources of springs. What sort of shifts in consciousness, quantum awakenings, and all of this have you experienced over the past decades or more since you've been on these paths?
Well, there has been change in the springs themselves. There's been a change in flow and where they come out, and it's hard to ascertain, because I've been doing this for about 14 years, 15 years, if it's just something that happens cyclically, or if it actually has to do with our upcoming times in 2012 and what's going on. But I think you're onto something when you say that when you drink the spring water, you're connecting into the earth energies, and the earth changes, so you can feel it more. You're more in tune with it. Otherwise, you're out of tune with it. I don't know how somebody could be in tune with it, unless maybe they were barefoot sleeping on the earth all the time. That would make sense. But other than that, you got to drink spring water fresh from the source in order to tune in and connect to what's going to happen. Also, it takes away the whole idea of the fears that we have about water. Our hydrophobia, that, oh, I can't drink it, has bacteria in it, oh my god, the algae in the water, you can't, it's terrible, we have to have purified water. It just takes that stuff away and clears it away, so you become an actual being that's capable of living in your environment and understanding your environment just like every other creature in the world lives.
Yeah. So we're able to get the instinctive downloads like the animals. I remember when the tsunami flooded Thailand there years ago, all the animals were seen to be, migrating away, the animals and the birds migrating away from that area hours before that thing arrived. So by plugging in, absorbing this information and these frequencies, we naturally become more and more attuned to the nature of life and the communications, the subtle communication that's going on from the Earth, and also through the cosmological forces that are being carried in the water as the frequency holder, as Gabriel Cousens likes to call it. So the water from the springs is one thing, but obviously, you've been such a fan and champion of raw foods for such a long time. The structure, the natural structure of the water in hydrating fruits and vegetables. How important do you feel that in terms of people growing their own food and gardens and orchards and what have you?
Very important. That's up there in tantamount in importance as well, like spring water. To grow your own food, to consume the juices of that food and get that download of that water. The food is mostly water anyway, and we're mostly water. Now, I have gone to the extreme of not actually drinking water and just doing vegetable juices and coconut water and fruit juices to see what that's like. And there's definitely a syrupiness to plant waters that regular spring water doesn't have, and they hydrate you in different ways. And that's what I've learned from experience. And you need both. You do need both. So that's something to be aware of and to know, and also to act on. So it's good not only to eat the vegetables, but to juice them too, and to eat the fruit and juice them too, and blend food and get on more liquid food. Putting that all together is pretty much a big chunk of your diet. When you really do that, you get a lot of your diet is kind of covered, and it becomes much easier to change your patterns, because how much can you eat in a day? You can't eat that much in a day. And so if you just get on the juices, you get on the spring water, you're taking out a lot of your eating time, and then what are you going to have left? You can't eat much more than that. And so you immediately change your whole calorie intake. You get on a more calorie restricted diet, you get on a more prana rich diet, and the prana and the mana is in that water. It's in that living water in the plant. It's in the water bag. I mean, every cell in a plant is like a water bag, or it's like a water balloon. And when you puncture that water balloon, you drink that water and all the goodies that are in there, the mitochondria or whatever's in those cells, the nuclei, all the different ribosomes that are in the cells of all those plants and all those foods. That's where the action is. That's the analogy I like to use.
Nice. Let's talk about now, the challenges, the increased radioactivity in the air, electromagnetic stress, and just general, just a general overall stress from living in what seems to be an increasingly hostile modern world, an unnatural modern world, and the challenges that that the human body faces from all of that. What are your favourite tips? I know you're really big into the tree mushrooms. What are your favourite tips for just general immune boosting, powerful supportive elements?
Well, I think what you're driving at is adaptogens. To live in this world without adaptogens is, I don't believe, a really intelligent idea, because the adaptogens help you adapt to the stress by a factor of about 10% to 15% in every type of stress. Whatever the stress is, emotional stress, mental stress, financial stress, endurance stress, any stress that you put on your body, the adaptogens will alter their chemistry in order to help support you. And the great adaptogens do include things like reishi mushroom and chaga mushroom, but also could include astragalus. Maca is a really good adaptogen, Hoshu Wu, and rhodiola, and some of the great Chinese herbs, and some of the great folk herbs from around the world, what we call the super herbs. So that's a category of food that I believe is actually essential today if you really want to maximize your ability to function in the world, to achieve peak performance. And this is an area that more and more people are being turned on to, and it's almost reaching a tsunami. So the whole raw food scene has kind of reached a real big momentum in the world, and the superfood scene has kind of developed now, and what's coming next is this whole thing about tonic herbs or super herbs that are really adaptogens, and they help us adapt to the stresses of our environment. And if we put all that together, so we've got our raw foods, we've got our spring water, that's a lot right there. We've got our superfoods and our super herbs. That's it. That's your diet. I mean, what more could you eat than that? And what higher quality substances could you eat than that?
Wonderful. So you've gone through obviously a tremendous evolution. How's your own particular program? How are you fine-tuning things this year in terms of your favorite tonics and magic potions that you're heading more towards?
Well, I'm doing a lot more of the Mycelium because I've got it in bulk now through Longevity Warehouse. You know, we've got the 24 mushroom blend, so I can just chow that stuff down now and get an appropriate dosage that really works. Before you had to go through all those capsules, and that was a nightmare. And you had to like open up all these capsules. Now you can just chew it down or throw heaping amounts into smoothies. So that's changed the landscape a bit. I'm really into Hoshu Wu. I have been into that for years. I really like Ron Teagarden's Fit extract, his Hoshu Wu crystallized powder. That's a phenomenal product, and it's a very powerful anti-aging product and a very powerful Jing substance. So I've been more and more delving into that particular product. I like the different astragalus products that are out there and derivatives thereof. For example, the Super Pill 2, Ron's Super Pill 2, the TA65, I've been going deeper into that. Also been working with some of the oils. I've got an amazing lecithin that I pick up from my friend Dr. Dave, and also my answer to fish oil, which is my DHA vegan product. And that has been an incredible addition to my diet. And I always take those things because they're oily, like the lecithin and the DHA omega-3. Actually, the product's called omega-3 plus astaxanthin. I take those two with the Mega Hydrate all together. And I have been getting into resveratrol too. Resveratrol is in Ron's Super Pill too, so I get a little bit there. However, I have found some sources on the internet, and I put them on Longevity Warehouse actually, of resveratrol that's got a lot of grape in it, because you don't really want the Japanese knotweed resveratrol, which is the Polygonum cuspidatum. It's good to have, but you don't want to be dosing on only that one. You has to have the grape and the grape skin resveratrol. And resveratrol is one of the great adaptogen substances, and it's one of the great discoveries of the last 20 years, and it's the reason why people who drink high phenolic wine live a long time. There's a strong association with longevity in high phenolic wines, like really dark red wines, and the connection is this resveratrol stuff. So I've been looking into that more and doing it more. Also been taking a lot of more cruciferous vegetables and getting more into their juices, eating them, and also the extracts and concentrates of cruciferous vegetables. The indole 3-carbinol product that I developed with my friend Dr. Mark Merriman is called Estrogard, and that product it's just incredible. You can really feel what it does for you, and it basically activates your DNA literally to recode for enzymes that will break down plastics in your system. That's what it does. That's an amazing discovery out of UC Berkeley. So I've been doing that more. What else? I've also, kind of been playing around with, when I'm out on a hike or something, I just don't bring any food. We just bring a thing for spring water and maybe a couple tinctures. Just have fun like that. And being on tinctures more, that seems to be like a fun little trend for me that I'm enjoying.
Wonderful. So this is obviously not a one-size-fits-all kind of program here. This is someone who's been experimenting, who's gone through a definite evolution through raw foods, integrating superfoods, super herbs, and now tonics. But all of these things we're talking about, anyone can safely start experimenting with these and adding these, integrating these into their existing programs. Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's talk about the super herbs for a second, because some people get a little bit freaked out about herbs. You know, we have so many different programs going out there in our society about what herbs are and if they're good or bad, and just it's all made up. Nobody actually who's made those statements really knows what they're talking about, as compared to, say, the Taoist tonic herbalists who've been dealing with this stuff for thousands of years. The tonic herbs or the super herbs are actually a class of foods. It's not herbs, it's food. And they're foods you can take every day, so they're not like oregano where after a while you're like, I can't have that anymore, or garlic where you just, you know, you reach a saturation point, or echinacea where it can actually start having allergic reactions in your system. We're talking about the super herbs. Out of anywhere from 250,000 to 400,000 food herbs in the world that people have eaten over the last 5,000 years and still eat today, only about 50 to 70 of those are considered super herbs. So it's a very narrow category. And these are tried and tested. They are very adaptable to different metabolisms, because generally not everything is great for everybody. But in the category of super herbs, you're gonna hit the bell curve a little bit more head on. You're gonna actually get most of the people to have positive results from taking them. And that's just the way nutrition is. You're playing with probabilities. This whole idea of like, that's bad for everybody or that's bad for everybody is completely silly. I mean, it's just absolutely silly. It's more about playing the probabilities so that you're stacking the odds in your favor whenever possible.
Wonderful. So, let's see now. Here we are, cruising to the airport. It's early February 2012. What's your year looking like this year? And how you feeling about the travels and the new connections you're going to be making on the road?
Really excited about this year. It's going to be the best year ever. It really is. 2012, we've got such a build-up. This better be the best year ever. That's how I'm going into it, and that's how I'm going to go out of it. This is going to be the best year of my life. And the year begins for me, or from this point on, it begins for me in LA, and then I'm going to be going to Calgary to do an event with Deepak Chopra, which is really exciting. We're going to be sharing the stage together there. That's February 19 and 20. And then I'm going to be coming back to LA and basically handling different tasks and details for a couple weeks, and then flying to Peru, and I'll be in Peru for a month. So we're doing 2 back-to-back retreats in Peru. We're going to be at Machu Picchu for the upcoming March 21st equinox. That's going to be an incredible day right there. And then come back from Peru. I'll be going to Canada, having a great time there. I've got a great event lined up in Barrie, Ontario. My friends Mark and Bridget are going to be hosting, and actually Bridget was at Noniland years ago, and we had our 9 magical days retreat, and we've become very good friends. We've done some great events together. Then I'll be going to the East Coast and doing a whole bunch of events at Kripalu Yoga Center. Be in New York City. I'll be in Baltimore. We've got a wonderful event lined up in Baltimore. Then I'm going to go over to California for our longevity conference in late May, flip around, come back, and head back to New York, and then eventually on to Iceland in June, and then turn around and come all the way back to Noniland. That's kind of what we're looking at here.
Wow, wonderful. Well,
that's just half the year.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So people on the road listening to this, dotted around, looking forward to checking David Wolfe out, connecting with him. So I know you're a great gatherer of wisdom, bro, and it's not just food that you know is a subject of great interest to you. You're a researcher across the board, consciousness, the levels of consciousness, exopolitics, all kinds of fascinating out there subjects. What's really turning you on at the moment in terms of the new stuff that you're reading or researching or interviews that you're following?
There's so much. It's so much great stuff. I mean, I've tuned in on the moon again. This whole story that David Icke has kind of reintroduced back into the world, that the moon is not a natural object that was emitted from the Earth or anything like that. It was actually towed in, and it was actually set up where it is right now. And that's obviously what's going on, because the moon is the only celestial body ever known in the whole universe that doesn't rotate upon its own axis. So that's very unusual in the universe. And it's exactly the relative size of the sun in this day and night sky. I mean, it's like, come on, you're going to tell me that it's exactly perfectly the same disk size as the sun randomly by synchronicity? I don't think so. That's not true of any other planet, that's for sure. They don't have moons that are exactly the same relative size as the sun in their sky, in their day sky. So, you know, I've been tuning in back on that, and that's been kind of fun, and been listening to different interviews with researchers and just entertaining it. I mean, I guess I'm more believing in stuff and more just being entertained by it, being open to it. There's so much dogma about beliefs that I just kind of let that all go, and just I'm entertained by it. I'm open to the possibility. I don't necessarily buy into every little facet of it, but I'm open to the possibility that that's real.